Hey guys, now I know some of you are looking at what kind of binary trigger system you want for your ARPK upper, and I'm here to help answer some of those questions. So what it comes down to is there's two major manufacturers out there. You got Franklin Armory and you got Fostech. Now I've used triggers from both those manufacturers. Heck, I've used every generation of trigger from Franklin and Fostech, and I've used them on the range and in simulated engagements at One Shepherd, S&S Training Solutions. Aside the point, the main thing I want to bring to your attention is the issue with Franklin Armory and why I wouldn't recommend it as a trigger system. Its downfall is the fact that it allows for hammer follow. And this hammer follow, while it may be a safety concern with a outer battery ignition, I haven't ever experienced that, but what I have experienced is stoppages. And how these stoppages occur is you're running the trigger normally, but maybe you get a hiccup in there where you don't you release the trigger too fast, you outrun the gun, and then the hammer just follows the bolt carrier group back on its way to the chamber, and you don't get an ignition. You got to rack that bolt to the rear, eject that cartridge out of your chamber, and allow it to fly home and get you back in the fight. But that's a major problem, because that little hiccup could be the difference of you getting taken out or you being able to survive the engagement. Now Fostech actually addressed that issue, and how they addressed it is they got a little toggle in there that interfaces with your bolt carrier group, and it will not allow you to drop that hammer unless the bolt carrier group is in battery. So you can still incur malfunctions with the Fostech by either not allowing the trigger to properly reset or by outrunning your gun. Believe it or not, you can actually pull these triggers faster than the gun can run. But one of the saving graces with the Fostech is if you do have that kind of malfunction, you simply pull the trigger and release the trigger again, and you're guaranteed to get at least one of those shots off. So if you're, let's say, doing a mag dump, it may just sound like a hiccup in the cadence of your fire, or if you are consistently doing it, it essentially would just have your rate of fire to that of a standard semi-automatic trigger. So it's not really that big of a deal, and it breathes new life into the binary trigger concept. So of the Fostechs, there's actually two triggers that they have on the market right now. They got the Echo and they got the Echo Sport. So the Echo trigger itself came out first, and it has a hyperfire trigger spring technology, where basically it has two additional coil springs as opposed to a standard AR-15 style trigger spring, or hammer spring rather. And it's supposed to give you a little bit more pop to the firing pin to get more reliable ignitions. Now, I haven't encountered the need for that, but it's a nice little extra insurance. Now, being that it was the first one on the market, let's say it doesn't have the most refined design. So first off, you notice that I have these captured trigger pins, and that's needed because this original trigger design allows the regular conventional pins to just walk on out. So you got to have some kind of capturing device, anti-rotation, or maybe even just some little screws to keep the pins from walking out on you. The other thing I want you to look at here is the amount of over travel in both the pull function and the release function. So first off, this is a 3-position selector. You got safe, you got semi-automatic, and then you got echo mode. So again, watch the amount of over travel we got here. Okay, so I actually have to keep pulling the trigger after the shot broke. And again, I have to keep releasing past where that shot broke. If you don't do that, it's going to incur a malfunction like I was alluding to earlier. Other than that, it's a great trigger. Well, other than a couple other things we'll touch on later. So this is the Echo Sport trigger. It's actually only a 2-position selector. Safe, semi-automatic. Notice that it operates very similar to a standard GI trigger, but it has this additional functionality of this paddle that you push over to the other side of the receiver, and that gets you into echo mode. So that's pull and release. So that's a game changer, guys. One of the biggest issues with the original Fostech trigger is if you're a shooter that's been doing this for a while, you kind of build in those muscle memory techniques to ride the trigger reset. And the issue with this original trigger is you got to retrain yourself. You got to actually treat this trigger differently than any other AR-15 trigger out there in the market. You have to treat it like a toy trigger, like a water gun. You got to pump that trigger forwards and backwards past the point that you would naturally think that the trigger would reset. With this new Echo Sport, it's not a problem. You can keep all your same shooting fundamentals. Caveat is, instead of a 3-position selector, you got this paddle doohickey. So if you can look past this, you're ending up with a better trigger, in my opinion. That being said, these both will give you enhanced capabilities over a standard trigger. That's what I got, guys. Take care.